understand you're charged with 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter.
I understand them.
All right. And do you understand that you have the right to conflict-free representation?
I do.
That was James Crumbley at a preliminary hearing last December. The Michigan father heads to trial this week and is the third to be charged in connection to the November 2021 Oxford High School shooting that claimed 4 young lives and severely injured others. His son, the shooter, pled guilty to terrorism and murder in October of 2022, and his mother, or the shooter's mother, Jennifer, was found guilty on 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter in February.
On count 1 of involuntary manslaughter as to Madison Baldwin, we find the defendant guilty of involuntary manslaughter. On count 2 of involuntary manslaughter in regards to Tate Muir, we find the defendant guilty of involuntary manslaughter. On count 3 as to involuntary manslaughter regarding Hannah St. Juliana, we find the defendant guilty of involuntary manslaughter. And in count 4 of involuntary manslaughter against Justin Schilling, we find the defendant guilty of involuntary manslaughter.
From the beginning, prosecutors widely believed that the shooter's parents should also be held responsible for what took place on November 30th of 2021.
I have shared previously, and I will reiterate today, that gun ownership is a right, and with that right comes great responsibility. Based on the information and evidence I have received, today I am announcing charges against the shooter's parents, Jennifer and James Crumbley. The charges are as follows. James Crumbley is charged with 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter. Jennifer Crumbley is also charged with 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter.
The Pontiac jury was not forgiving when it came to Jennifer, and with some of the testimony we heard about James in her trial, he may face a similar fate.
It became clear that the Oakland County Sheriff's Office was beginning to type a search warrant for a residence in Oxford, the Crumbley residence on East Street. And I began gathering facts and creating timelines for Lieutenant Marsban to use in the search warrant affidavit.
Okay, and at some point did you find out what the other special agents found out from the gun store and who that gun was sold to?
Yes.
And what did you discover?
It was sold to James Crumbley on November 26th, 2021.
This is from November the 26th of 21, the date we already spoke of. So this is a receipt, total $519.35. Again, James Robert Crumbley. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And this is the day you recall seeing somebody with him?
Yes.
His son. Okay. Okay, so this is a 15 shot. And it's 3.75 inch barrel.
Yeah.
Is that right? Okay. And he walked out with that gun on November the 26th, 2021. Is that the date that we have right there?
Yes.
Okay.
As soon as James got word of the school shooting, he called 911 to report his gun was missing. Let's take a listen.
Really sure. At my house, there's an active shooter situation going on at the high school. My son goes to high school. I have a missing gun at my house. I need an officer to come to my house right away, please.
Okay, I'm not going to be able to get anywhere to your house right now. So they're on the active shooter situation.
I understand that. There's a missing gun there. I have a missing gun, and my son is at the school, and we have to go meet with the counselor this morning.
James also called Jennifer when he heard about the shooting. She took the stand in her own trial earlier this year and spoke about that phone call during her testimony.
Well, my husband had called me when I was still at work, and he said there's an active shooter at Oxford High School and I can't get a hold of Ethan. And that's when I opened my phone and I saw the "I love you" text. And then I texted him, "Are you okay?" In the process of it, I was getting my stuff and running out the door, letting my boss know that I had to go to my son's school. It was on 75 when I was trying to get to the exit that my husband called me and he asked me where I hid the bullets, and I told him, and then he said the gun is missing. So instantly, I'm like, oh my gosh, he's got the gun. I didn't actually think he was at the school shooting it. I thought maybe he walked home and got the gun and was in the field by the school. I didn't imagine my son actually going into a school and shooting. And then when we got more updates, I was like, oh my gosh, he's a school shooter. He's going to kill himself. Because in my mind, that's what school shooters have done. They've killed themselves after. So I yelled in my talk to text, Ethan, don't do it.
Jennifer also testified about the lack of trust she had for her husband, yet she didn't see a problem with him purchasing a gun for their child. Take a look.
Do you agree with me that owning a firearm involves a great deal of responsibility and trust?
I do.
Okay. And you entrusted this responsibility to your husband, James.
I did.
You didn't trust him to keep track of your son.
Oh, I trusted him to track of my son.
In those messages that we'll see in Exhibit 423, asking him, where is your son, over and over and over again, does that signify trust or distrust to you?
That was when my son was walking home from school. Not that I did not trust my husband with my son.
Okay. And you didn't really trust your husband to hold down a job.
It's not that I didn't trust him to hold down a job. He had a hard time holding down one after COVID.
Okay. And in those messages, you are constantly asking him about work, how much money he's making, and what he's doing to obtain employment.
Correct.
Okay. But this is the person you entrusted with a deadly weapon.
I did.
A big focus for the prosecution has been neglect. They say that both Jennifer and James were aware of their son's mental health issues. Just look at this text exchange between the parents.
You know what? I totally thought you were giving him a Xanax last night. ...
And Jennifer's response was,
Does he seem better?
and then
No melatonin.
and James wrote what?
I know.
And Jennifer wrote,
But he hasn't had one before, so I should have only given him half.
and then James' response is, he's doing his school, says his head hurts. He took Tylenol.
Correct.
Okay. And Jennifer's response was, is he okay to work? That's at March 19th at 11 a.m.
Correct.
And James's response
Was, yeah.
and that's
Yeah.
also, it's 11:13 a.m.
Correct.
Okay. And then Jennifer wrote 11:38 a.m. on March 19th. Does he remember what he did?
Correct.
Okay. And what was James's response?
James responds with, dude, I am working on a demo right now. I have not talked to him and he's doing school.
And then her response is?
Okay then, geesh.
Now, we know that James bought the murder weapon, but let's listen to the firearms store manager describe the actual legality of gun purchasing.
Hypothetically speaking, if there was a 15-year-old who walked into your store and tried to buy a handgun, would you let him?
Absolutely not.
Okay, that would be illegal, right?
Yes.
Okay. So there's certain boxes are checked here, and the condition of the gun is notified. In this case, it was used.
Yes.
Okay. And the purchaser has to assert certain things before he can walk out with that gun. Is that right?
Yes.
In one of those boxes, are you the actual transferee, or you are the actual buyer of the gun, and it's not for somebody else?
Right.
Because it is not legal for someone to buy a gun for somebody else through your store, correct?
No, it is.
Well, that person has to come in and fill out this paperwork, that is
Yes.
right? Right. So it would not be legal for a adult, for example, to check this box that the gun is for himself and then transfer it to a child.
Yes.
James Crumbley's day in court is fast approaching. He faces 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter. We anticipate a key focal point to be whether he failed to exercise reasonable care for the firearm that he purchased, and whether that could have prevented his son from carrying out this massacre. Jennifer Crumbley will be sentenced in April, so make sure to keep here Law and Crime for gavel-to-gavel coverage of the Crumbley family saga.